I've coached clients to IFBB and natural pro cards, world and national records in powerlifting, as well as coaching professional and Olympic Games athletes. In the journey of coaching all of those clients, a common thing that we have to control is hunger. However, it's important and necessary that we know how to control hunger without changing our calories. The reason why that's important is calories are the main driver for the results and the outcome that we want. If we think of everything that goes into a diet, it would be calories, protein, carbohydrates, fats, meal timing, specific food choices, all these elements. Calories is king. It's kind of the overrun, well, I guess a way we think of it is the foundation. There you go. So everything that we want to do is built on our calories. If I want to drive fat loss, I have to be in a calorie deficit, at least part of the time or the majority of the time. You can actually be in a caloric surplus at certain moments of the day. However, overall, the majority of the time spent needs to be in a calorie deficit. If you're wanting to build muscle tissue and actually push your weight up, then we need to be in a calorie surplus. If we're looking for performance, we're trying to balance our surpluses and deficits to control our performance, our output, but also our recovery and not losing weight excessively or gaining weight excessively. So calories is the foundation. It determines the effectiveness of everything else that we do. So if I'm struggling with hunger and I'm dieting, I can't just eat more food to get rid of the hunger because that will get rid of the dieting component. We are not going to lose fat if we eat more food. And likewise, if I'm trying to eat more food in order to grow and I'm struggling with hunger in the opposite way, meaning I'm not really hungry for my meals, I feel stuffed all the time, I just feel miserable, I can't reduce my calories and just eat less to manage the hunger because then I won't actually grow the tissue that I'm needing to because I'll no longer be in a calorie surplus. And the same thing with performance. We can't just change our calorie intake depending on how we feel based on hunger. The calories needs to be consistent for our goal. That then leads into how do we manage hunger other than adjusting calories? One of the big ways to do it, and what I coach my clients to do, it's not the only way, but it's one of the main ways, is our food selection. We can look at something called nutrient density, and we're actually going to look at it more of a broader scope, is just caloric density. This is how many calories are in the food that I'm eating compared to the volume that that food requires to get those calories. An example of this would be as if I had a head of lettuce. Think of like a head of lettuce, it's a small basketball type size. Then if I had the exact same volume, that same small basketball size in pizza, there's going to be a huge calorie difference between a head of lettuce versus that same size of a balled up pizza. That's a very, probably maybe a little gross or weird analogy, but it works for caloric density. Not all foods are equal in regards to the calories that they provide for the volume or the size that they take out. An example, again, would be vegetables and fruit. They tend to have low caloric density, meaning there's not a lot of calories for the amount of volume that's in them. One of my favorite fruits is blueberries. I eat blueberries a lot, and they're great because you can actually have a significant amount of blueberries and barely touch 100 calories. Another good example is watermelon. That's delicious, but there's not a lot of calories in watermelon. If somebody's wanting to volumize their meals to help them feel fuller between their meals, which helps address hunger, they can add more fruits and vegetables in a replacing component, a replacing mechanism in their diet. Meaning they can't just have their normal diet and then just add fruits and vegetables. They have to replace. What would they replace? They would replace more calorically dense fat and carbohydrate sources. So if they have a lot of fats in their diet, say they're using a fatty meat for dinner. Let's go with steak and asparagus. So maybe they're having steak and asparagus for dinner, but they eat that and then in like an hour, they're like, holy crap, I'm super hungry. And because of that, I tend to pick a little bit at this, pick a little bit at that, and I overeat at night. One of the adjustments we can make is if we want to get the protein from the steak and we have the vegetables like through the asparagus, we can actually just pull out the steak and use a lean meat instead. Still get the protein. An example would be chicken breast. I can use, or fish, like a white fish. You can use a fish or a chicken breast and still get the protein you need, but that takes out the fats from the steak. And now you have all of those calories you can allocate towards more vegetables. So maybe you can do chicken breast, but then have a big salad and a couple, like a piece or two of fruit. And that's much more volume to the food, and that can actually help you feel fuller for longer after that meal. There are other things we can do, like adding more fiber to our meals, increasing our protein. Usually protein can be increased or adjust a little bit depending on the person's activity level. So that's another way of kind of modifying hunger. But a simple solution is to substitute the caloric dense foods in our diet. Likewise, if someone's eating to gain muscle mass, they're trying to gain weight, and they're struggling to eat all the food that they have to eat. This was actually an example for me of something I struggled with a lot in my journey. When I first started lifting weights, when I first started my health and fitness journey, I was 15 years old. I was chubby, kind of skinny fat, hated the way I looked, so I was anorexic. I decided to just eat nothing and exercise all the time. That was not a great decision. And then when I started to eat in order to build muscle, I really struggled to be able to eat, especially since I had been eating nothing. For 2.5 years was roughly about the time that I was eating about one meal a day and trying my best to not even eat that. So then transitioning to bringing more protein into my diet to help build more muscle, and then I eventually started to bring in carbohydrates and fats as I felt comfortable. But getting to the point where I could eat regular full meals, multiple meals a day, was very challenging. One of the ways I did that, and not that this is, let me explain it and then I'll put the caveat at the end. So one of the ways I did that was I dropped all fruits and vegetables. I just ate meat and a carbohydrate. Sometimes it was rice, sometimes it was pasta. It was really kind of a hodgepodge of a mess when I was younger because I didn't know what I was doing. This is way before I went to school for my master's in nutrition and started helping other people. This was my initial journey, and this was back before the internet, so you couldn't really Google anything. I was reading in magazines, and everything I was reading in fitness magazines were these big, massive 300-pound dudes eating everything under the sun. And I'm like, I can't eat, any of these meals, let alone 5, 6, 7 of these meals every day. So I really struggled. I tried to eat what they would eat, but it didn't work for me very well. So for example, a lot of them had oats or oatmeal for breakfast. I thought that was gross. It was, I didn't like the flavor of it. I really didn't get good energy from it. I felt bloated from that. But at that age, I didn't understand. I didn't know. I thought that was just my body being broken. I didn't realize I could just switch to a different carbohydrate and be totally fine. So for example, now I use cream of rice. If I want a fast digesting carbohydrate source, it's great. No bloating whatsoever, wonderful food choice. So you can do substitutions like that, and that helped me. But initially, I really struggled to be able to eat, so I dropped my fruits and vegetables. As I've encouraged others to do in various times, we will do that, but we're definitely still going to get our vitamins and minerals in other ways. And maybe instead of dropping fruits and vegetables completely, we might just minimize them for the time being. So we might have a 4 to 8 or 12 week push where we're going to rely into vitamin and mineral supplements, bring down the volume of fruits and vegetables, and really push basic proteins and complex carbohydrates and see if we can get the person to grow in that way. That helps them better manage their hunger because they don't have the filler foods. They don't have the fruit and the vegetable taking up space that then could have been space towards a protein source or a complex carbohydrate. So using caloric density in your favor can be beneficial for fat loss diets. It can also be beneficial for muscle building diets or caloric surplus diets. And then performance, that's a fun one because you really can get to change that per day, per meal, however you need. Before the workout, you might be choosing things that are more calorically dense, so that way you don't have to have a lot of food in your belly. After the workout, if you now need to be more calorie controlled, even push a calorie deficit to get a little bit of fat loss, you're going to then choose foods that are less calorically dense, so that way you can have more voluminous meals to manage your hunger. This is simple in concept to understand, is that not all foods are created equal in regards to the calories per volume. You can do a simple Google or ChatGPT search and say, top 20 or top 30 calorically dense foods, top 20, top 30 low caloric density foods. So you can get kind of on a list on either end and see where the foods that you prefer fall in those lists. Peanut butter, for example, is definitely going to be calorically dense. That also is why sometimes people get in trouble with that on a diet. Very quickly, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter turns into 4, 6, 8 or more if the person isn't weighing out their peanut butter. So it's really important to weigh out calorically dense foods. Another thing is just understanding that there are other ways for you to also manage hunger. And part of that would be meal timing. You can play with that. Sometimes for myself, for example, I will struggle with hunger often in the morning more than I do in the middle of the day. And this is also partly because I don't eat a really big meal right before bed. I try to taper off my food towards the end of the day. I then wake up pretty hungry, so I actually might eat my first 2 meals closer together, maybe only 4 hours apart, 3 or 4 hours apart. And then I get busy during the day, get active, I want to do my workout. So then there might be a 6 to 8 hour gap before my following meal. So you can play with meal timing. You can have 2 meals back to back and then have a larger gap when you're more busy. You can really play with when you have your calories based on when you feel the most hunger. Often people will say that they don't feel hungry in the morning. They kind of fast through the morning, but it's actually overwhelmingly most often the case is they overeat at night, and that's why they're not hungry in the morning. They usually then have trouble with controlling their body composition, maybe even their body weight. So they don't know why they can't lose weight even when they're in a caloric deficit, supposedly. Or they're like, I just don't look good. I have a lot of water retention. I feel like crap during the day. I'm under-recovered from my workouts. And that might just be because they're under-eating during the day. They're overeating all this food at night when their body really can't utilize all of it. And then you would tell them, hey, eat more in the day, in the beginning of the day. And they're going to be like, I'm never hungry. Well, it's because you're eating all this food right before you go to bed. And then your body's waking up not in a deficit state. So therefore, it's not sending you any hunger signals, and it doesn't even want any more food because it's still trying to process the food you put in it last night. So this is stuff that we can be aware of. And the more awareness we have of these type of elements, the more we can manipulate them based on our preferences. And not only our kind of static preferences, the things that are the same no matter what, but also our day-to-day preferences or situational preferences. I really love this component of getting to help people because understanding these type of elements helps them have a better experience with whatever diet structure they're trying to do. So if they're trying for fat loss, they're trying for muscle building, they're trying for performance, the more streamlined you can get your nutrition to feel based on, the more streamlined you can get it to be based on how you feel. That allows you to get better long-term results because you're going to have an increased consistency. You're going to have better mental and emotional health. You have better performance in your workouts. You're just going to feel better throughout the entire process if you're able to better match how you eat to how you feel. And we know that we can't change our calories in order to do that. So understanding that there are still options such as caloric density and even playing around with things like meal timing, those options allow us to better personalize the way we eat, not how much we eat, but the way we eat to better match our needs. So I thought this would be a fun topic to touch on because with increased awareness, you can now start to play with that. Again, if you're struggling with hunger in the sense that you're hungry all the time and you want to eat more food, but you can't, then you want to choose foods that have low caloric density. That allows you to eat more volume of food and you'll feel fuller between your meals. On the opposite end, if you're trying to increase muscle mass, you're trying to increase weight, but you're struggling with hunger in the sense that you're not hungry enough for your next meals and you just feel like you're stuffing it down all the time, then you want to choose high caloric density foods. If you're a performance-based athlete, you're going to do each of those options conditionally based on the time of the day when you're having that meal. Typically, before workouts, you want to have high caloric density foods so you don't have a lot of food in your belly while you're working out. And then away from the workout, you want to have low caloric density foods so that way you can better manage hunger and not overeat when you're less active away from training. This is a really cool concept. I would encourage you to play with it as much as you can. If you have any questions, you can sign up for a one-on-one consultation. We will talk for an hour. I'll give you all the tips and tricks based on your lifestyle, your preferences. You can take with that and run with it on your own, or you can sign up for a monthly coaching, and then I can kind of teach you how to do it over the upcoming months and help you further personalize other elements of your nutrition and training as well. If you want to sign up for one-on-one consultation, you can do that on our website, www.c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can also go to c3method.kit.com, and that's K-I-T. So C3Method.kit.com, and we have a couple of nutrition programs for sale there. They're a lower cost than the one-on-one consultation, but they still have a system, a framework that you can use to implement these types of concepts as well as control your overall diet, whether that's for fat loss, muscle building, or if you're a coach. I actually have a lot of my B2B, business-to-business programs and systems I'm now starting to transition to be B2C, business to customer. So I want to start to produce more of that type of content. It's been awesome training other training staffs and helping other gyms, but I want to have a bigger reach now and start helping people more directly with that type of content. So I am in the process of switching a lot of that B2B work to B2C. So you can check that out at c3method.kit.com. Awesome. If you like the podcast, if you like everything we're doing, like it, subscribe, share. Anything you can do to help grow the podcast, to help reach more people would be great. The more people we can help, the better the world will be. That kind of thing. Okay. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.